My struggle to learn English. Learning a new language can often feel like climbing a mountain blindfolded, and that's exactly how my journey with English began. It wasn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It was a battle with self-doubt, fear of failure, and the constant pressure to keep going even when nothing seemed to make sense. But, little by little, step by step, I learned that every struggle came with a lesson. This is the story of how I wrestled with English, and how it transformed me. The first encounter. A rocky start. I grew up in a small town where English wasn't commonly spoken. In school, we learned the basics, words like cat, apple, and hello. But it wasn't real communication. The first time I faced English properly was in high school when a new teacher walked in and introduced herself entirely in English. I sat there, frozen, as her words flew over my head like a flock of birds. It was humiliating. My classmate giggled at my blank expression, and the teacher had to repeat herself in our native language. That moment planted a seed of frustration inside me. I thought, why do I have to learn this language? I'm no good at it anyway. I avoided raising my hand in class and dreaded assignments involving English. My grades were terrible, and I convinced myself that I would never need to learn it. When motivation found me, things changed when I realized that many things I loved, books, movies, and music, were in English. I couldn't enjoy them the way I wanted to because I was stuck waiting for translations. I remember watching a popular TV show with subtitles and thinking, I want to understand them without needing the words at the bottom. Then came a pivotal moment. I discovered a novel that wasn't available in my native language. I wanted so badly to read it that I decided to buy the English version and try to make sense of it. With a dictionary at my side, I started with one word, one sentence, and one page at a time. Every few minutes, I had to stop to look up words, but for the first time, I felt a small victory each time I understood a phrase. The struggles in practice. A world of mistakes. The road wasn't smooth, though. English grammar felt like a maze of confusing rules. Why is it go in one sentence and went in another? What on earth is a phrasal verb? I would spend hours writing simple sentences, only for my teacher to cover them in red corrections. It was frustrating to realize that no matter how hard I tried, I still couldn't get things right. Speaking was the hardest. Even when I knew the words, they wouldn't come out correctly. I remember trying to order coffee during a trip and the barista asking, "Sorry, what?" 3 times. My cheeks burned with embarrassment as I repeated myself awkwardly. Every failed attempt chipped away at my confidence, and there were moments when I wanted to quit altogether. The turning point, finding tools that worked. At some point, I realized that I had to change my approach if I wanted to improve. I began using language apps, like Duolingo and LingQ, which gamified the learning process. Each time I completed a lesson or solved a grammar puzzle, I felt a small but meaningful sense of accomplishment. I also started watching TV shows and YouTube videos in English without subtitles, pausing whenever I didn't understand and replaying conversations until they made sense. A major breakthrough came when I joined online language exchange platforms to practice speaking with native speakers. It was terrifying at first. I stumbled over words, made silly mistakes, and felt awkward about my accent. But each conversation built a little more confidence. My partners were patient, and many times, they assured me that my mistakes didn't matter as long as I kept trying. Those small moments of encouragement kept me going. The role of routine, learning through everyday life. One thing I discovered was that consistency mattered more than intensity. Instead of forcing myself to study for hours, I made English part of my daily routine. I switched my phone settings to English, wrote short diary entries in the language, and even tried thinking in English while doing everyday tasks. I remember feeling silly at first. Why would I talk to myself in a foreign language? But over time, it became natural, and I started noticing improvements. Words that used to feel awkward on my tongue began to flow, and grammar rules that once seemed incomprehensible started to click. The struggle with self-doubt. Even as I made progress, there were moments of doubt. I would compare myself to others who spoke English effortlessly and think, why can't I be that fluent? I'd feel like I was running a race where everyone else was miles ahead. But I realized that comparing myself to others only slowed me down. The only person I needed to compete with was myself. There were setbacks, too. Sometimes, I'd get discouraged when I hit a plateau, feeling like I wasn't improving no matter how much I practiced. But I reminded myself that learning a language isn't a straight path, it's a series of ups and downs. The key was not to give up. A moment of triumph. The first time I truly felt the reward of my hard work was during a trip abroad. I was in an airport, and a traveler asked me for directions in English. Without thinking, I answered fluently, and it took me a moment to realize what I had just done. There were no awkward pauses, no searching for words, it just happened naturally. I walked away from that encounter feeling proud and light-hearted. That small conversation was proof that all the mistakes, frustrations, and struggles had been worth it. I was no longer afraid of English. It had become part of me. What I learned from the journey. Looking back, I realized that learning English wasn't just about mastering a language. It was about learning patience, persistence, and self-acceptance. It taught me that mistakes are not failures, they are stepping stones. Every mispronounced word and every awkward sentence was part of the process, pushing me toward improvement. More importantly, it made me appreciate the value of communication and connection. English opened doors to new cultures, friendships, and opportunities that I never would have experienced otherwise. The journey continues. Even now, I'm still learning. There are always new words to discover, accents to understand, and expressions to master. But I no longer feel overwhelmed by the process. I've embraced the fact that language learning is a journey without an end, a continuous adventure filled with growth and discovery. Today, I write, read, and speak in English with confidence. But more than anything, I feel grateful for the struggle. It shaped me, challenged me, and ultimately made me realize that the only real failure is giving up. And that is a lesson I will carry with me forever. This story reflects the ups and downs of language learning, emphasizing that the journey is more about progress than perfection. It shows how persistence, self-kindness, and small victories can make a big difference, and how language opens doors to a new world of possibilities.